Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn something about Google Forms. How effectively we can make use of the Google Forms in order to interact with our customers, employees, students, in fact the recipients of any sort of event. So Google Forms can be used for conducting surveys, which can be created in few minutes just to ask your clients or employees or participants about their opinion. Let us say, for example, if you have conducted a class for a set of students, you can certainly ask the feedback from the students using a Google form, like how effective was the teaching, or how much percentage of the lecture was understandable. Like this, you can conduct a small set of surveys in order to understand the views of the participants or the students. So it is a free and online tool which allows to collect information in an easy and effective way, which is included with Google Sheets, so that whoever responds to your Google form will be automatically stored into a Google Sheet. Okay. Now let us jump into the Google form directly and see how forms can be created and how it can be used to conduct surveys or get the opinions from the recipients. Okay, so here we are. So initially you need to go to your drive and say click new, and we'll go to more and select Google Forms. In that, again, you have two categories. One is blank form, the other one is from a template. So initially at this stage we'll try to go for a blank form wherein we try to give our own fields. Okay, I'll just click on this. I'll be redirected to this Google form. Okay, so this is how a basic Google form looks like. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is give it a title. I'll say student feedback, and I'll write a simple description. Give your feedback regarding the class on computer networks, say for example. Okay, so all those things that you modify here or you make a change in this Google form will be automatically saved onto your drive. Okay, so this form and its respective data will be saved onto your drive. So let us rename this. Name of the form would be student feedback, whereas the title is also the student feedback. Okay, so what would be the first question that we would like to ask as part of feedback for the students? Okay, so let us say we can ask something like this: are you understanding the subject? Are you understanding the subject? You can give it yes or no. You can say a multiple choice question. The first option would be yes, and second option would be no. Obviously it is automatically populated. We can also add one more option here, something like maybe. That would also be one of the answers. So this is the first question that I would like to ask my students as part of my feedback. Now I can make this question compulsory by just making this required switch to be on. Okay. Likewise, you can add multiple options here. Since we have chosen multiple choice, the user will be able to choose one option among this. Now let us try to add one more question here. Say, is the course worth understanding? Is the course content covered properly? Even this, you can make it a multiple choice with yes, no, or maybe. Okay. And then again I'll make this required question to be answered, and then I'll say one more question by just clicking on this plus button. Now I'll say how useful is this course to your career growth? Maybe you can choose this option called linear scale, where the users can scale from 1 to 5, or you can also make it 1 to 10 if it is possible. Okay, let us stick to 1 to 5 so that I can give 5 options. I'll say not useful for the first label, first option. Useful, or I can say mostly useful. Most useful. Even I'll make this a required question to be answered by the users. Okay. Let me add one more question here. Say, any suggestions? Okay. So automatically I'll make this a paragraph. In fact, the Google form will automatically understand what kind of answer is being expected by the user. So it will automatically select which type of question here. So let us make it a paragraph, and this will not make it a mandatory question to be answered. Okay. So along with this, I'll add one more here. Say name, and one more, that is email ID. Okay. So in fact, we need to get these two things prior to getting the feedback. So let me move these two to the first. I'll make these two things appear at the very first of the Google form. Okay. And I will make these two as mandatory questions to be answered by the recipients. Okay. So this is the form that I've created now. Okay. You can see here I have given a title, I have given a simple description, then I am asking the user to enter his name and email ID, and I am asking few questions about the subject that is being taught. Let's say 3 questions, and finally I'll ask for any suggestions if required. Okay. So this is my Google form. Now I can share this Google form with the students of my class using this send button. But before that, let us preview our Google form, or how will it look to my recipients. So this is how the Google form will appear for our recipients. Okay. So ultimately he or she has to fill the entire form, whichever is mandatory. Of course, that must be filled up compulsorily. and then later at the end the user has to submit the Google form. So this is how the Google form looks like for the recipients. Okay, so before proceeding with that, let us try to see some of the restrictions here. We'll go to settings. See, it requires the sign in for the Google, and it is asking me for this option, restrict to users in Gopte Institute of Technology and its trusted organizations. I'll just uncheck this so that any user who has the link for this Google form can respond to this Google form. Okay, so yeah, that's it. So I'll just say save, and then I'll click on this send button. Okay, so now I will ask one of the users, say myself here. Okay, I'll just include the form in the email itself, and then I'll try to send it to the user. Okay, so this user will be able to access this form and he can give the feedback. Okay, yeah, this form is being sent to the recipient. Now let us see where he has received. Let us preview this and submit a response. We'll try to respond as a recipient of this form. So I'll say Vidyadhish, and I'll say my email ID, and yes, I'll just answer these questions. Are you understanding the subject? I'll say yes. Is the course content covered properly? I'll say yes. How useful is this course to your career growth? I'll say 4. Any suggestions? Yeah, right now I don't have any suggestions to give, so I'll just say submit. So once I submit the form, I'll be able to see this message here which says your response has been recorded, and I can even submit another response here. Okay, so let us go back to our form, and here is another tab which says responses. I can click on this responses and see who are all the students who have responded to this Google form. Okay, so this is what I have responded just now. Okay, name, email is given, and are you understanding the subject? I got one response, that is yes response, so that's why it is showing 100% here. Similarly for the second question and the fourth question. Okay, it depends on how many users have responded to this Google form. Okay, so this is how the responses will look like. Okay, now I can make all of these responses to be copied or to be moved to a Google Sheet just by clicking on this sheet icon which is present in the responses tab. I can click on this and it will ask you to create a new spreadsheet, or you can also use an existing spreadsheet. Okay, so I'll say create a new spreadsheet and say create. So it will create us an Excel sheet for us, wherein the responses are being stored like this. Okay, so this can be used further for analytical understanding purposes. Okay, even the timestamp, the time at which the response is given, is also recorded here. Okay, thank you.